Welcome everyone, episode 2 of the show. Today I'm with a huge founder, a huge content creator, and I want to introduce him to you guys, to the audience. Welcome the wonderful Alex. How are you? I remember that we met in 2022. It's been a long time ago, and one thing that is that shocked me with how you presented your project, because you built the Bricktopians. It's about your storytelling. So instead of asking how instead of explaining all your storytelling, Alex, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And I wanted to straight deep dive into the art of storytelling, because as a founder, a lot of people are neglecting this skill. And my question is, how did you improve into the art of storytelling?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And thank you for having me, Oro. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name's Alex is Building. I'm the co-founder of Bricktopians, and also a very active content creator on X. So I got really, I've always been a storyteller. Like, it's something that I've just always had a lot of fun with. It's always been almost like in my blood. Like, it's just something that I've always found. I've had a skill set for connecting with people via storytelling. But it's very important because something that I learned very early on in my journey is that people don't connect with products, they connect with stories, or they connect with brands. And if you think about like the reason why Nike shows their products alongside all these incredible athletes, it's not that when Nike was releasing the Air Jordan shoes for the first time, it wasn't the fact that Michael Jordan was playing in them made them any better, but it was the fact that when you put this shoe next to Michael Jordan and you wear it, you feel like you can be like Mike, like you can be the one that takes that last shot. And when I personally found this growing up, whenever I'd wear any shoe that was made after an athlete, I'd feel like I had superpowers. Like, I felt like I could go on the court and take on anyone. And so it's always been really important to me whenever we've been doing anything, whether it be creating Bricktopians, or I might be able to show, or the brain boot that I have next to me.
Let's go.
That it's not just about showing the product in a vacuum and just being like, here it is, I hope you guys understand how cool this is. It's always about taking people behind the scenes into the journey where to create Bricktopians, our first collection, I had to bet everything. I had to bet 8 years of investments and savings and everything to actually get our collection off the ground and completely put my blood and sweat and tears on the line to get us to where we are today. Or with the brain boot, and how we're not just creating a sneaker, we're actually inventing a new way of footwear creation with this very, very emerging form of 3D printed technology that the only two companies using it at the moment are us and Dior. And when you start to understand what goes into a product, suddenly a product isn't just a product, it's something more than that. It's a symbol, it's something special, it's a story. And so that's why I put so much emphasis into it. And it's very much a core in the way I do things, even into my content as well.
And it's funny that you say that, because you mentioned it's only you. So shall we call it the company Bricktopians that is doing this 3D? Okay, so the Bricktopians and Dior who is doing this. So at one point I want to touch a little bit on this, because you mentioned, okay, so there's a new way of building shoes, so you kind of need to create a narrative, right?
Yes.
And how into the Bricktopians right now? So we know, well, I know that it's an NFT collection, but it's also a shoe. So how are you building this narrative into maybe educating, first of all, your holders to have a new style of shoes, and maybe educate the mass consumers to, hey, there's a 3D print shoes, you can use this. So how are you doing this?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So actually, to answer your question from before, technically our parent brand, we call ourselves Abnormal Studios, because we're a brand that's built on building the impossible. That's what drives us. We want to do things that have never been done before. So we did that with Bricktopians, and the Brain Boot comes under that brand as well. But for now, I think in this market, I just want people to more closely associate what we're doing next and accessing that with Bricktopians. So we really try to align those two brands quite closely at this point in time. In terms of the way that we think about educating the market around what we're doing, we really just think it's important for people to see what we're doing and not go, oh, I've seen single piece shoes before, I've seen Yeezys before. That's nothing special. What we really want to foster is that spirit of, like, you know, when you see the way that luxury brands are marketed, like Louis Vuitton or any of these like brands that are built on craftsmanship, the story of what actually goes into those products is extremely important in what they do. They will show, you'll always see this with like Swiss watch brands, right? Like they'll show some master watchmaker in a lab coat with like these, like that scene in Toy Story where the guy's remaking Woody and getting really granular about the detail that is going into this watch that then ends up becoming a $40,000 Audemars Piguet or whatever watch that is created. We really think borrow a lot of inspiration from that. And even the way Nike markets its new cushioning technology whenever it drops something new, we bring a lot of inspiration from that into the way that we communicate what we're doing. Because, to bring it back to what I was saying before, a product in a vacuum is not that interesting. That we don't really know how to place something, especially when it's quite new. You really need to build in those references that are familiar to take something that is completely novel and completely new and make it something that feels special.
That's interesting. And are you now focusing into working with your holders, or are you more into educating the mass consumers, maybe out of the Web3 space? How does it work now at No World Studios and Bricktopians?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We think I'm very inspired by what these guys have done.
Yeah.
So I think many of us can agree that the market, if we consider the market for NFTs, this community that we share on Twitter, right? Like there might be between 30 and 100,000 of us that are actively keeping track of what is going on every day with NFTs. I don't see that as a big enough market to really leave a mark on the sneaker industry and the luxury fashion industry. So we are very much thinking about the way that we're building from the perspective of capturing new people and enabling what they get with NFT technology, whether that be owning an NFT digital collectible, which is essentially a certificate that they can trade in for a sneaker, or just authenticating their sneakers with a certificate on the blockchain, which we've seen from brands like Prada, and I think Louis Vuitton have done this as well, where you actually get that certificate of authenticity is marked digitally. We want to bring a lot of that technology into mainstream products and mainstream applications, and essentially make it so that, so a lot of people don't know, you can get a 30% discount on the Brain Boot by having one of our bricks. If someone has no idea what an NFT is, they don't care at all, they have no interest in the technology, they just want the sneaker, that they can participate in it that way. But then the people that like our brand and want to get a little bit more involved, and it's the first way of them hearing about us, and they start to learn that, like, hold on, I like what these guys make. I can get discounts, early access, exclusives, all these things. If I become like a member of the community, I'm actually going to take the time to figure out what that means and what that is, and get involved. So we think about that a lot. It's much more of that, like, it's like a Trojan horse or a more passive and natural way of getting involved, rather than what we see often in Web3, which is people can often get quite passionate about the way that other people should get involved. But it's like, no, we need to like meet them at where they want to experience this, and in the way that they want to experience it.
That's funny. If I may roll back a little bit and did dive into what you said. So you said I'm inspired with the Pudgies, right? Pudgies went to Walmart. I think, what's the price of the toy? $20, $15?
Yeah, my one was 25 Australian. I think they're 20, like 15 US.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty cheap. And you mentioned on your boot, it's a luxury target audience.
100%.
So Pudgy Penguins went into Walmart, which is mass consumers think. Luxury is a little bit an exclusive
Exclusive.
target. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you aiming to reach a luxury marketplace, or are you gonna, what's your strategy into implementing the physical object into a shop maybe?
Yeah, it's a great question. They actually won't be in a shop because they're print on demand. We make it
Yeah.
for the user, which is like a part of that luxury, personalized experience, something that we've come to love in Web3, where like something that we discuss a lot internally. This isn't confirmed on whether or not this will be the way that we execute it, but we would love if every single shoe had its own unique pattern so that your shoe is your shoe, like its own unique thumbprint. There's all these areas of customization and elements that we love in Web3 that we want to bring into these products, because something that many of us forget when we participate in Web3, right, is that our NFTs are actually luxury collectibles.
Yeah.
Many of us might not identify as people who buy watches, buy expensive clothes, buy expensive shoes. And the same person that might be not associating in that way will be wearing a $10,000 profile picture. Right? We have this culture around a certain sense of exclusivity, personalization, community, and connection to the products that we purchase in this world. It's just that many of us haven't made that bridge over into the physical wearable space. And funnily enough, the people in the physical wearable space haven't made it over to our world. And we kind of see this position in the middle that's very much our own, and not just ours. I actually love seeing what Artifact and Clonex do to kind of bridge that gap as well. We've seen some of the drops they've done with their Air Force Ones and now the crypto kicks and all these luxury physical digital fashion items that kind of bring together a new community. And if you think about like let's think about the way like Tesla blew up as a company, right? It started as the original Roadster, the expensive, limited run, hyper exclusive sports car. And that built the brand. That became the thing that was like the hero of what they were doing. And then they went over to the sedan, still in an upper price bracket, but more widespread, more affordable. And then they walked that down all the way until they got to their lowest cost model, broadest appeal model, the Model 3. And I could see us going down a very similar route, which is we go for this like hyper exclusive, hyper limited, very targeted at a particular niche product, and go down that route until we start to get to things that are more mass market applicable and a lot broader. But at the beginning, I think there's a massive value in, you ever heard the phrase of like people who try to be everything to everyone end up being no one to nobody, like that sort of mentality. Yeah, I see it as we want to go after a very specific type of customer, and hopefully come across to be holder, especially at the beginning, and then really build out and blossom from there. Have that core audience that has a bit of a different mindset that aligns to what we're creating.
And you mentioned something really great, because I think 99% of entrepreneurs lack the ability to, or drop the ego to target a specific audience. Like a lot of people are thinking, I can reach everyone, but that's a good point that you're doing as an entrepreneur, is to really target this niche and saturate this niche. So right now, you got inspired by Pudgies, and I see when you're talking about Clonex and Artifact, the problem that I have is that if I buy a Clonex, I cannot see what kind of shoes I will have in Artifact, right? And I know that your PFP at the Bricktopians is ahead. So my question is, how do you educate someone that will buy your Bricktopians to get the culture of your shoe, which is your product?
So it's funny. I actually am less concerned about Bricktopians buying brain boots than I am about brain boot holders buying Bricktopians.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I would not be at all hurt if not a single Bricktopian bought a brain boot, but it would make me incredibly happy if all these new people who discovered the brain boot and were like, wow, this is really cool. What else do you guys do? And they came across and bought a Bricktopian. That would make me happy, because like we often hear a lot about the way that projects die is they can only survive like within their community, and naturally over time people have real life get in the way. They become more involved in crypto. They're less involved in NFTs. We've seen all of it, right?
Yeah.
And if you're only reliant on your existing community to survive, eventually that flame dies out. And so what you need to do is you need to have a really awesome beacon to bring new people in with new energy and new interests and all these things. And that's what I think is really cool about doing something like a brain boot. Like I would love in someone's head for them, in their mind, they see this thing coming, they love it, they want to get involved, they want to make sure they get access, they want advanced access, they want cheaper access, all these things. And they go, I'm going to buy one of those Bricktopians and hang out with those guys because clearly they're doing something really cool. And that brings a lot of fresh energy and fresh people into our world. That's what I care most about because I don't think a strong strategy is if the people in Web3 Twitter, like I see the Brain Boot as well being marketed outside, much more aggressively outside of Twitter through things like Instagram and TikTok, where fashion is much more the mainstay and it's much more visual than our essentially text-based platform that we have here.
Yeah.
I think that market is much bigger than our NFT market. And then within our NFT market, Bricktopians, our current community, is a subsection of that. So our strategy can never be just to target Bricktopian holders. It has to really be to go beyond that and bring new people into our world. And that's what I think is cool about doing something different, right? Like if I was Bricktopian, if we go the other end of the spectrum, like many projects have just dropped a second collection, maybe a token, and they've done this thing. And it sounds really good when they're releasing these things. But if you actually like reverse engineer, does this get new holders? Do new people get involved? Are people like energized by what's going on in the project? Usually what happens is you create some excitement for the existing people. And every time a few people go and then eventually there's no one to be excited about what you're doing. When do any of us see that an NFT that we've never heard of is dropping something new for free and go, oh, I'm going to buy that? Very rarely, right? Like it's very rarely that drags us in. Whereas we see this as something like, this is completely new. This is something that has never been seen before. And there is a community of people outside of our community that are excited about things like this. And those are the types of people that we want to capture.
That's cool. That's cool because, I've got this last question and last thinking before getting deep dive into you as Alex. So as you mentioned, a lot of Web3 founders are only following the trend and are doing Web3 strategy. So NFT collection, token, airdrop, all those kind of things. And you have this mindset to think about, okay, how can I take a Web2 people and bring him to the Web3 ecosystem? And my question is the following. I know that you have a Discord with Abnormal Studios. And do you bring this new target into this funnel onto the Discord and get to meet the community of Web3 with those guys? Or do you have another strategy to this?
It's a really good question. One part of the strategy is definitely going to be text message based like notifications. I would love to over time build a text message group, like so to speak, like just put your text message in your phone number in here and receive text messages about all the things we're doing. That's one part of the, I wouldn't call that a community, but it's an important part to call out because I just think of myself as a consumer. I never check my emails for promotions. I'm really bad at checking Discords outside of Bricktopians. So if I think about my own habits, I need to also be almost like honest with myself and like build around myself a little bit and be like, okay, what would someone as disinterested in all the external world as me, what would that type of person need in order to stay involved? In terms of, it's funny, we've gone through this arc where Discord was really popular. Then I noticed a lot of people kind of maybe like were getting less involved in Discord and kind of chilled out and went away. And now I'm kind of starting to feel this resurgence where people, as the bull market heats up, they really enjoy having a home that is like their home. And so I'm becoming more and more bullish on Discord again as a place for people to spend time. And what's really cool is I'm actually a part of a lot of Web2 Discords that are either built around a YouTube creator or a brand or whatever it might be. And I've actually gotten a lot more value out of those than I have out of NFT project Discords, for example, just because those I'm actually going to because there's a community around things that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that we could build something very similar for what we're doing with both Bricktopians and the Brain Boot. Because if you think about it, like if we've got these really cool, immersive, exclusive products that are very customized and very novel and innovative, and what's really cool is the way that we're building them is so that we can do new versions very quickly. Like that's why we put all this effort into how to build a 3D printed sneaker like this, so that when we come up with new ideas, we can either release them or at least create them very, very quickly. I love the idea that there can be a hub for the people that are interested in that. That is our Discord, the same Discord that Bricktopians are in, and everyone is hanging out together, kind of all embracing this, almost like a creative collective or an art collective, which I just think is a really cool idea. I think to go back to Artifact, they do it really well where when you go into their Discord, there are people that are just into the sneakers. There are people that are just into the punks projects or the pods or whatever it might be. But they all have that shared general chat, and they've got their little subsections where they hang out for their respective parts. I think that is something that we can really build quite nicely into what we're doing.
Yeah, I think the Discord, people were they got bored of the Discord farming meta, and they needed to to chill a bit. And right now they understand the power of Discord. There's this notion, I call it the funnel marketing level 2. There's the Discord and Telegram or WhatsApp group. And I think Discord is more useful to get to talk with people, because Telegram is just the influencer or the creator that is talking. So Discord is really cool for sharing, and you have a lot of knowledge, and I agree with you. I'm involved in a lot of Discord to find some good knowledge inside it.
Do you know what's funny though? Just to interrupt, like the thing I love about Discord now versus the farming meta is the people who are there actually want to be there. Like it's actually way more of a community now. Like people aren't there because of some incentive, and then the second that incentive goes away, they leave. They're there because their friends are there, and people want to hang out together, and they want to see the same faces every day, and they want to check in on what they want our home to be, the place that they discuss what's happening in sport or what meme coin is popping off or all that. Our home becomes the hub of that, and it's so much bigger than what the project itself ever was intended to be.
Of course, and it's also, there's this trust that you get to meet the same people, and that you will trust the knowledge that people are sharing through other people. So you're like, okay, I know this guy for a long time. I trust his sources. So that's good. Now let's jump off to your monk mode. I'm curious about. I believe you had 1 month monk mode, right? How did it went?
Yeah, it went really well. And so I'm going to clarify what monk mode meant, because there's been a lot of different interpretations of how I went with monk mode. So essentially all it was I was finding that Twitter was taking so much of my time every day. And even to this day, as I've gotten back into it, you realize that what takes the most time from Twitter is not creating the content. It's not thinking about what to post, spending the time posting it. It's replying to your own posts, replying to other people's posts, replying to DMs, and keeping up with the news. You do those 4 things, and suddenly there's a lot of, it's not even the time, it's the in and out of, like, the context switching of taking you out of tasks that you're in the middle of, or you get a notification for someone that it might be really valuable to have a conversation with or have a call with, but it's that taking you in and out of tasks. And I really just was excited to take a break from that specifically. So funnily enough, a lot of people thought, it's like, oh, good for Alex, finally taking a holiday. It's like, no. I actually worked probably twice as hard as I normally do, but I was just working on the main things. So very specifically, one of the key areas that we were focusing on was improving the fit of the Brain Boot. So a story I was telling some people in our Bricktopians Discord is, when we started building the Brain Boot, it's a 3D printed sneaker. We started by building it around a 3D scan of our feet. right? Like this is our first time making a sneaker. That was the way we were approaching it. And it turns out that in traditional shoemaking, the way that a shoe is made is, I'll use my cup as an example, is, let's say this was a fake wooden foot. They start with, I'm pouring out tea all over the place. They start out with a fake wooden foot and they wrap material around it. And then they kind of like, you would imagine with like making a hoodie, like you'd have a pattern that is pretty standard that people cut fabric out of, and they wrap it around what a model would be and bring it all together. It's very similar with making a shoe. In the real world, you have a fake wooden foot, you wrap material around it, you put a sole on the bottom of it, and you're done. And we had to essentially digitize that process. We went from using a scan of our foot to creating our own fake wooden foot in the digital realm that had to accommodate the fact that we don't have laces on our shoe, that our material behaves differently to how traditional materials behave, that our cushioning, it sinks in at a different rate to what normal rubbers would sink in. So you need to like design like the slope quite differently. And so there are all these things that it was kind of beautiful. Having time out away from Twitter meant I wasn't giving a couple hours each day to that, like in between meetings or like with various other elements coming out throughout the day. I was able to just give entire days to focusing 100% on that. And so it was awesome because I was actually able to alleviate a lot of blockers and really accelerate our development. And it's something that even since being back, I've worked to maintain a lot of the principles that I took away from that. So outside of us doing this podcast now, I pretty much avoid entirely calls throughout the middle of the day. I'll take them either way at the early in the day or at nighttime. And keep the middle of my day completely focused for that core work. And so I think it's valuable whenever someone can take an opportunity, because I'd been creating content for a year and a half non-stop. And so you develop all these habits that you don't realize are unconscious, but it gave me a moment to pause and go, how do I want my weeks to actually look? How do I want my days to look? What am I going to, even within the content realm, what am I going to give time to? And what am I going to be okay if I don't get to that by the end of the day? Like, I'm okay if some days I don't take time to reply externally. As long as I've replied to everyone who's shown me love, I make sure I make time for that. But some days that if I don't have time to check out what's going on, that's okay. And I let that go. Whereas I wouldn't have previously.
And that's fine, because a lot of people are mistaken with the definition of monk mode. A lot of people are like, monk mode, you get out socially and you just like recover for something. I don't know what. But I'm like you. The monk mode is more into diving into the number one subject that you need to, that matters the most into what you're doing and your goals. And you need to focus in this specific task in order to have you have a deadline. So let's say 30 days, and you need to focus only on this thing. I totally resonate with you, because I'm doing the same thing with the educational platform I'm building. It's having this sprint session of product building, and then having this session of, communication thing. So right now I managed to automate and delegate a lot into my team, and I can focus into marketing and communication. But back in the days, I needed to step off the social medias and focus into building the team internally, share the vision and all those kind of things. And
like just on that, like I think so one of the biggest things I took away from my monk mode period is I think that at some point in every creator's journey, like you can be a content creator where you just create content and do sponsorships and that's it. And that's fine. Like if that can be your whole journey, if that's what you want it to be. But I think if you want to do something really special, you at some point will decide that there's something that you really want to build, and like that goes beyond what maybe the traditional creator path is. And there will be times where you should take time to fully build that and come back with something in your hand so you have something more exciting to talk about. Perfect example is I'm a massive fan of what Leon, Kermit and Bossa are doing. They run I shouldn't say a marketing agency. They run a web3 agency. They just killed it with the overworld release. They are running some of the biggest spaces in web3.
Fun fact, I've interviewed Leon 3 days ago on the podcast.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Amazing. He interviewed me for his podcast. I think those guys are so smart and
they're
so
smart.
good at what they do.
Yeah.
And a lot of inspiration I took away from Leon is he is really good at he does the work. Like his 80-20 is he spends 80% doing the work and 20% talking about it. And I think a lot of creators can get into 80% talk, 20% build. And so for me, whether it be the brain boot that we're doing, some extra physicalization and collectibles that we're working on for Bricktopians, and some of the stuff I've been doing with sharing jobs, I just wanted to take some time to like go, okay, there's all these things that I want to be completed. So I have something way more special to make content around rather than just like make content for the sake of it and build quite slowly. And so I actually just took that time and pushed everything forward. And now I feel like post-Christmas, post-New Year's, I'm going to have some like really cool stuff to start talking about.
That's cool. I feel it on your content on Twitter. I feel it. Speaking about Leon and Unfungible team, I call it the Unfungible team. The power that they have is that they have 3 massive personal branding. And, when you see Kermit, Unfungible. When you see Leon, Unfungible. When you see Bowser, same thing. And the thing is, I know from you, I know some Bricktopians that are holding your PFP, so I know them. But when we see Bricktopians, we think about Alex and not a whole pod. Did you think at one point to get some of the personal branding, and you're like, oh, build with me, it's going to be cool. We can have a win-win scenario. How did you think about having a pod?
Yeah. So do you mean as in like getting other people involved with?
Yeah, in Bricktopians, like say you have three profiles that are involved in X, and they are involved in Bricktopians. 4 Bricktopians into the thing.
Yeah, it's funny. So something that I think about a lot is elevating the people who are already within our community. So there's a lot of people who are either emerging content creators or people who have bought a Bricktopian recently that are getting into that space. And my philosophy is to really play the long game with that as much as possible, which is take people who might be smaller and emerging and help them become massive and go the same path that I went. It's funny because now I'm considered a content creator, but I actually found a video in my phone from just almost exactly a year ago. And it was when I had 3.5K followers. And I was in there saying like to myself, it was like a video diary. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just figuring it out. I made this post the other day. That one did kind of well, but my other post sucked. And but I'm having fun because there's these like 12 people that always like my posts and we're becoming friends and all that. And I tell that story because it's like, it's funny how I was never meant to be a personal brand for Bricktopians. It happened out of necessity in that I was just marketing the project so hard. I was on every space. I was selling like crazy, like really, really pushing us to get that next wave of the new holders, the new energy. And it all happened quite organically. But now my big thing is I want to use my platform to lift people from within the community up. In terms of getting other people involved that are personalities, I think that also might emerge quite naturally. But the big difference between us and the Unfungible team is that they are more of a business, right? Like a business that's a service business where the three of them are using their profiles as a funnel to share in a shared revenue outcome. Right now, as a brand or a project, I'd say we're much more in a product development phase. So it's much harder for me to, let's say, I'm just going to pull out someone. I'm not saying we're going to partner with this person, but let's say I wanted to punter with Hunter Soler, who's an awesome dude. And we were selling brain boots. That would be a very different proposition to while we're building brain boots, if that makes sense. Because there's at this point in time, there's less of an aligned way for us to work together. But as we're actually going out to market and pushing and selling things, that's when I think there'll be some really cool ways to get some more people involved.
And also, as you mentioned, you're building a product. Unfungible team is a service. As a service, you need to have humans, right? Because people want to resonate with the human on if they sign a contract with them, and you have a product. So you have a team on the backstage. Yeah, and I feel it because it's the same thing for me. Now let's maybe talk about. It's funny because you mentioned there's the video 1 year ago when you were saying, "What the fuck I'm doing." It's the same thing for me. I have this on my phone somewhere. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going somewhere, and I know this thing. So yeah,
that's literally the video. It's literally the video. It's like, I don't know when I'm in it. I said I'm at 3.5K. I don't know when I'll hit 35K, and I definitely don't know when I'll hit 350K. And it was really warm to watch because it's like, now I've finally passed that milestone. I was like, whoa, at that point in time, I almost like literally didn't believe that was possible.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I will watch it then maybe in 2 years. I don't know.
I'm going to post it.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I will comment it and post mine. And I was curious also right now, since you finished your monk mode, how do you plan in 2024 to balance content creation and product building?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's eternally the thing that I find the hardest. What's really interesting about product development is I find that the workload goes up and down in waves. So it's very much a hit a bottleneck. Okay, we need to throw as much like weight, time, effort, people at this as possible. Break through the bottleneck, pretty natural work. I'm just managing, checking in on things, making sure everything's going correctly. And so what I've found is that I am now much more receptive. I'm better at scaling down what it means to be a content creator and maintaining pace, and then scaling up when I have a little bit more capacity, if that makes sense. Like right now, I'd probably say that I'm in a scaled down phase. All I'm posting is pretty like individual tweets, some jobs that take me about an hour each week to find. Like the workload is actually really light as a content creator. Whereas when I get a little bit more flexibility in my schedule, what I would like to do is two things. Is I would like to do more spaces again. Because I've recognized the value not just in the like follower metrics or likes or anything like that, but the most value that I've experienced over the past 4 months or so has been from relationships, and I find that those relationships occur through conversation. So I really want to get back into spaces. I also found for Bricktopians, we had the highest number of sales when I was doing the most spaces. So I need to have a clear enough calendar where doing spaces doesn't create blockers on the development. But I also need to, but when I have those opportunities, really go for it and strike and go into those pitching competitions. I will never be too above going to a share your project with 12 people in it and going in there and really aggressively telling people what we've got going on. And then the other side of it is I would love to experiment more in my content. And I think experimentation comes from having 5 or 6 hours completely free where you can actually like stop and think about things. Like a little bit more video content, a little bit more building in public content. Recently for Bricktopians for our birthday, I broke a couple rules with what my co-founder would have liked. But I showed a little bit more behind the scenes of how we're building the Brain Boot and did some storytelling around it.
Okay.
And people really loved like the feeling of closeness to the process and the understanding and the thinking. And that video actually it's like a 6-minute video. It took me 3 days to make. Obviously not 3 full days of work, but like a day of filming, a day of editing. Oh, I'm not happy with it. Another day of editing the next day, like another time in the afternoon. And for my more broader content, I'd love to bring in a little bit more of the building in public with what we're doing with Bricktopians and anything else that is just on my mind, and not do it in a half-assed way where you just like throw on the camera, record and post it, but actually like bring back to what you were saying at the start, bring some storytelling into the content and do things that maybe get some pretty outsized or random results that you don't get from just tweeting all the time.
Yeah, and also you mentioned the space. The thing that is cool with the space is that you can talk about whatever you want outside the algorithm. So, it's like you can literally try to spread a little bit more about your vision, your knowledge, close this network and those individuals that are here to make some connections. So yeah, that's cool. And the building public, a lot of people like it. Like a lot of people are looking into how it looks like to be a founder of Bricktopians and build a thing that is impossible to build, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've seen I've there's a lot of there was this 1 year ago, there was this founder meta and like build in public, but no one know how to build in public. And I was like, how to build in public? No, I'm not going to show the meetings that I have in my team. I'm not going to show those kind of thing. And I figured it out because I've seen a French YouTuber building in public, and it's really cool because he's sharing his private life, but not too much, and sharing his metrics in e-commerce and web2 things. So I found the balance really good between private and the professional way. So I'm curious about you. Are you planning to get into private things or just the business part of thing?
It's a great question. I've actually found the building in public stuff to be hard as well. Not because I'm actually a pretty open book. Like I'll share anything. I don't really care. But it's more about keeping it entertaining. I think that building in public can tempt you to make lazy content. Like go, all right, well, I'm building in public. So I'm just going to do this random, like film this meeting or do this random thing and I'm going to post it. And it's like, just because you did that doesn't mean that it's actually engaging for the user. Like I care way too much about the story in a piece of content to like just let it do something like haphazard and let it go, unless it's the flip side of that is I find that actually works really well if you actually do it really poorly. Like if you whip out your phone and you just film and you just talk to it and it's not manufactured, there's something real and organic about that people like. But I think that's kind of like spices. Like you want to like weave that in. You don't want that to be the main thing. Otherwise you just become a lazy content creator, right? So the thing I find challenging with it is if I want to do it, I want to do it well. If I want to do it well, it takes time. If it takes time, I need time, which means I need to create time. So
and I'm like you said, I'm like the guy who's pulling my phone. I'm a digital nomad, and when I'm at the airport or when I'm traveling, I'm just pulling my phone and documenting anything, and that's what I'm working on. It's like having this baseline on and this story that I need to create, because a lot of people are not understanding what I'm living in real life and what I'm sharing on digitally. So that's the cool thing that you have, is that you have this perfection to storytell everything and to craft a good video.
Yeah, do you know what's funny is I've actually really wanted to, like, the thing I love about writing a newsletter is, as you were saying, it's not guided by the algorithm. It's the only place on the internet I can truly be myself, because I don't need to, it's like if you're here because you like me, and this is me. This is the most me that I can be, right? Like, and so something that I've really wanted to fool around with is I haven't done this yet, but I think like Twitter's subscriber features are actually a really cool place where creators can do things like that. Like I haven't turned on that feature.
Are you subscribed to someone?
Yeah, I'm subscribed to NFT God. I'm subscribed to Whale. I think it's a really like light touch way that one, you can like, it's almost like buying a coffee for your favorite creator every month. And what's cool about the way NFT God does it is he'll post about when he's watching the football. He'll post about when he's like doing these little things that are more personal. And the reason I think he posts that sort of stuff in there is because it's the only place where there is no algorithm. Like it is just it's not a project you're representing. It's not the algorithm. It's not that. It's just like these are clearly the people who love you the most, so they're the most engaged, and therefore they want to know just the boring stuff, like literally, like how, like even just things down to like, how do you find time to exercise? Like if I wrote that as a thread or a long form post, some people would find that interesting, but that would almost like hurt my algorithm. Like, as in, like, I know this is we live in a Web3 world. Everyone's like, cool, Alex. Like, I don't care about when you exercise. But in that world, because of the stuff that I post is so about like balancing multiple responsibilities. That kind of is the essence of who I am. It like the person that's gone a little bit deeper, they care about that stuff. And so I think even if it's not there, even if it's a private Telegram or a Discord or whatever it might be, I think there's a really cool thing for creators to be able to go even deeper with the people that they've got close relationships with.
Yeah, people want to know what this genius is doing during his free time. What
genius? And the answer is, I never feel like a genius. I'm always working it out.
Yeah. Okay, so the N word, Alex. What to expect as Alex in 2024 and from the Bricktopians?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think over the past month, I've had a massive philosophy change, like a core philosophy change, which is my whole personality has been built out of trying to win the game in one go, like going for these like big grand slam, like punch you in the face events that like take the world by storm. And if you think of an NFT launch, like that's what that is, like at its core. But what I really care about now is incremental improvement every day that stacks up and over like within a very short amount of time just becomes completely like uncompetable, never seen before, but you got there because you were building something guaranteed that you walked your way to by never going backwards and just accelerating that little bit each day. So for me, it's really about building out strong foundations for Bricktopians to have revenue sources, even outside of what we're doing here, so that we can continue to do really cool things within the project without needing to demand revenue from people within the project. Really going outside of our world and connecting to broader Web3 and creating products that people really love. So that's one key part. The second part is I'm just really enjoying as a hobby, like finding these jobs for people. It's like, it doesn't take a lot of time for me. It seems to be creating a lot of value for people. So I've been cooking up some stuff to automate that a little bit so I don't really have to spend any time, but people can still get all the value that it's been delivering. So I'm really excited. We've got the Brain Boot coming. We've got new products coming for Bricktopians. We've got some other releases that we've got planned. And as a creator, I'm going to keep just trying to help as many people as possible.
Awesome. I think we're done with it. Thanks a lot, Alex. Guys, if you want to follow his Twitter, subscribe on his newsletter, join the Discord of Bricktopians. There's an amazing year coming up for Alex.
Thank you for having me, Oro. Yeah. Thank you so much, by the way, before we jump off. This has been awesome. I really enjoyed this conversation. There've been great questions.
Thanks. Stopping the record.